if Granny doesn't understand her question. Who would like to ask Granny a question about her past or
How about what kind of house did she live in when she was a little girl?
what kind of house did you live in when you were little?
What kind of a house? Lived in an apartment above the garage that my dad and uncle managed. They made cars work that didn't work. And I had a nice little bedroom. And you know, I still say the prayer that I said. Now I lay me down to sleep. I pray the Lord my soul to keep. If I should die before I wake, I pray the Lord my soul to take. God bless. So now I have to say, God bless my grandchildren, my great-grandchildren, and help me to be a better mother and grandmother. And thank you for all you do for me. Amen. And I said a prayer like that since I was a wee little girl. Back then, I knelt by my bed, and my mother and my dad were listening while I said my prayer. Every night in Pennsylvania, where it's cold in the winter and hot in the summer.
I think Callie has a question.
Okay,
What did you do for fun, like with your friends?
you have to speak up because Granny don't hear no more.
You're an interpreter.
Oh yeah. What did you do for fun
With your
For
friends?
what?
with your friends?
High school age.
Yeah.
What
What did you do for fun when you and your friends got
Well,
together?
Let's see. I roller skated.
What?
Yes, and there was a bump at the bottom. I would start up on the bridge and come down around toward the garage where I lived, and there was a bump at the bottom of the sidewalk. And I jumped over that bump, and I thought I was so important. I jumped over that bump, and I had me a scooter, and I had me doll babies, and every Christmas, just about, that doll would be under my tree with a new dress and a pair of booties or something new. Same doll, because we couldn't afford to get me a new doll. The same doll, and was fixed with different clothes.
Cool.
Okay.
Okay. What was the silliest thing Papa did when he was
What'd
a
she
child?
Oh.
She wants to know what was the silliest thing that Johnny did when he was.
You!
What was the silliest thing I did when I was a child?
Oh my goodness.
Can't pick just one.
Oh my goodness.
Just tell us a few.
I don't remember. I don't think I thought stuff was silly. I thought it was great when they did something.
Silly.
Something silly. Okay.
I got one. Did he ever ride in a car with a
My mind's
knife or
blank.
anything in his hands?
That was a hammer.
I just
hammer?
know that
Hey,
I was happy that I had boys.
Tell them about the time that we were on our way to church and I was in the front seat with a hammer.
Well, he was standing up. He was, I guess, maybe 2, 3 years old. I don't know. Anyway, we were on our way to prayer meeting on a Wednesday night, and he always had a hammer or a screwdriver or a wrench or something. Wanted to do this, build this, and screw that and all that. And a car broadsided us, came out of a stop sign, went through the stop sign, and we were going to the church, and it hit my side, and I don't remember what happened to that hammer, but did you get a bruise?
No, I hit your finger.
Oh, all right. And we went to the hospital. I'd forgotten that.
She was in an accident. It was the hammer.
Yeah,
That
the
was.
hammer.
Do
The hammer.
you remember? Do you remember the time that I was jumping with a butter knife in my mouth?
No.
Well, I sure do.
Oh, you gotta tell me about that.
I was jumping on Daddy's chair,
Oh, yes.
and I had a butter knife in my mouth. Do you remember what
Yes, and
happened?
it went up in the
It went,
roof.
yeah.
Yep. Oh, I thought he wouldn't be able to talk. But he got over it. But he did. There was a lot of blood. I remember
A
that.
lot of blood out.
Yeah, I remember that.
Oh no, Papa.
Yeah.
Did she have a boyfriend in school?
Did you have a boyfriend in school?
Did I have many of them?
This is what we've been waiting for.
I started this school, now this part isn't very nice, but I started this school when I was 5 years old. I never should have started then. And I failed a grade. I had to wait until I gained age until I could finish, my schooling. But I was a great one for chewing gum. And the teachers never wanted you couldn't chew gum in school. And I had to go outside and stand outside the door from the time I was in first grade with chewing gum. So the teacher decided she would fix me, I guess. So she made me stand in front of the class and take my chewing gum out of my mouth and put it on the blackboard and go over and stick my nose in my gum.
Child abuse.
That's why my nose was so long today. I guess. Oh, that was a terrible thing for her to do, but I never chewed gum.
So tell us about the boyfriends.
Yeah, we did. You didn't finish telling us about all the boys.
Oh, okay.
The
I just thought just about anybody I looked at was in love with me. I said, we're always trying to, and my mother and dad didn't let me wear makeup. So I waited till I got on the bridge.
No.
Going to school.
With the skin.
And I slipped a little lipstick on and out of my pocket. I sneaked. I did a bad thing. We don't sneak anymore.
No, we
We
don't
do
do
bad things. No.
Andrew,
Because when you get old like me, you gotta remember those things and tell people about it, and they laugh at you. But at the time, it wasn't a laughing matter. It was, there's a question right there.
yes, Hannah.
What was your first job?
Your first job.
My first job was babysitting. I babysat for $1 a night or something like that, but my first job was at the dime store, Murphy's Dime Store in Brookville. And I just really thought I was great that I had a job at the dime store. And it was a job at where they sold stockings and socks and menswear and stuff like that. And I wanted to make an impression, so when they said, now you have to wash this counter, take the stuff off and wash the counter. And it was a wooden counter, and I remember the pail of water and the scrub brush that they gave me or told me to use. And I made a noise with the handle of the brush on the side so that people would notice me and know that I was scrubbing. I tried to make an impression. No,
How much money did you make
it
at
was
that job?
terrible.
How much money did you make at that job? Do you remember?
55 cents an hour, I think it was. It wasn't very much money,
Well, that's
but I think I ended up with $7 and something after. I don't remember. I don't remember. It was on Saturday, and I believe I got to work on Friday night. Yeah, I got to work on Friday night, and of course I had to drive. When I was 16, I learned to drive, and I just thought it was great. And my dad had a car with silver tire covers on the side, on both sides. I think it was maybe in the front, I don't know, but I thought I was Mrs. Astor because I was driving that car, and it was a big old clunker. It was a big one, but it made a noise like a threshing machine almost. It was a loud car.
Now, your dad liked to hunt and fish
Yes,
because we know that you ate a lot of interesting items. Tell us about when your dad, when you would want your dad to give you some fish, when you would have fish at night, and
You mean to eat?
yeah, when you were going to eat fish.
When I was a little girl, my dad, I stood beside his plate. He had his plate on the table, and I stood right there, and he would take the bones out of the fish and make a little pile, and I just wanted some so bad, and I'd put my hand over, now not yet, Louise, not yet. And he would sit there before he ate and fix me a little pile of fish, maybe like that, and I just could take my fork and just eat it real slow. But he cleaned fish for me until I was, I don't know how old I was, but he pulled the bones out of fish. And you got to remember, that was a poor time. There wasn't any money much going around it. They had to fish and they had to hunt, and come turkey time or Thanksgiving, my dad would go to the woods, wherever it was, and find a big bird. And they would clean it. They would scald it and pull the feathers off, and my mother would roast it.
What other kind of animals did you eat?
Oh, okay. We ate groundhog and pheasant and a possum if Grandpa would put it for 6 weeks in the corn crib where there was corn. And they got this possum because you didn't eat possum. But they put it in there for 6 weeks, and then that cleaned the body, and they would shoot it and skin it. We had possum.
Hey, Granny.
Deer meat, any kind of stuff like that. And they always made their own sausage. And I don't know, some kind of innards or something they would scrub out and stuff.
Did you ever eat a bear?
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 Bear? Did you ever eat bear?
Bear.
Did you ever eat bear?
Yeah, and I didn't like it.
Ah!
It was tough and it was strong. It was a strong meat, very strong.
It was barely edible.
Barely edible. Yeah.
Hey, Granny, what's your happiest childhood
They
memory?
used to send a Sears roebuck, and they would order a tub of catfish or some kind of fish, smoked fish. And I hated that stuff. Mama would put it to soak in water overnight to get all the salt and stuff that was in. Sent to Sears Roebuck and got that tub, round tub, wooden tub of fish, smoked fish or something, I don't know. But she used to soak it and get all that bad stuff out, and then she would fry it. Yeah.
Caleb wanted to know what your favorite childhood memory is. What's your favorite childhood memory?
My favorite childhood memory. I don't know.
When you
I
got that
can't
doll.
remember. What are you thinking about?
I'm not. I wasn't there.
Something
Okay,
happened.
Not yet.
Yeah.
The happiest time.
maybe it was ice cream cones.
That's a pretty happy time.
Yeah, we had a drugstore right across from us, from the garage. And for 10 cents, you could get an ice cream cone with two things. You get 2 scoops, you know. And that was great whenever, if my dad would give me a dime and let me go to the drugstore and get an ice cream cone, I thought it was great.
What was your first house?
Your
No,
after
I mean like she owned it. Like
Sebastian wanted to know if you recall your first. I'm assuming it'd be after you were married, I guess. Your first house after you left home.
After I left home, I married my childhood sweetheart, we'll say. And we got married, and they had a shower for us, and opened both the apartments, just opened the door and let all the relatives come in. I remember that my aunt got this is kind of bad. She got me a dish, a round dish, and she put brown sugar in the dish, and then she put raisins in the brown sugar. And that was, I was supposed to eat that stuff, but it looked terrible. It looked terrible. I just didn't.
Like a tradition.
Anyway, there was a lot of things happened, and it wouldn't happen to you children today that happened to me. Fun things and some things that weren't fun.
Speaking of fun, I know you lived during the Roaring '20s. Did you do the Charleston?
Did you ever do the Charleston? Since you grew up in the
No,
20s?
I never did. I tried.
You want to do it now? What? You want to try it now?
I
No?
tried that. Oh, mercy. I guess I was about 10 or 12 years old, and my cousins older than me, they were always doing the Charleston, yeah.
And Randy, did you ever go to any concerts?
What, did you ever go to any kind of concerts like?
No, we
No?
didn't have anything yet. Church, you know.
Right.
I was a Presbyterian, and it was a very strict denomination. And we had a pipe organ on one corner when I was a little girl, and I guess it might still be there, who knows. But anyway, that we had real low-key songs, you know. Then I went to the Methodist church when they had their concerts and stuff, you know, their meetings, and it was such fun. Look forward to the Methodists having their meetings and getting to go. But I remember that, and I remember teaching Sunday school when I was 16. I thought I was Mrs. Astor. I thought it was great.
Who is Mrs. Astor? Who is
We
that?
had a bell we had to ring up the stairs in a loft. And you rang the bell when it was time for church to start, or, you know. And I can remember that I was 16 when I used to ring that bell.
They want to know who Mrs. Astor is.
Did she ring the bell?
Mrs. Astor. The Astors were always the rich people. Very, very wealthy rich people. And people, when they would tease about somebody having a little money, oh, she or he's just acting like Mrs. Astor. The Astors were always, I can't remember whether it was Pittsburgh where they came from. I can't remember that, but we just thought if you had something that was elaborate, you were like the Astors. You had something great.
Do you remember the time that I was with you in the grocery store and you told me to go get Astor coffee? And you said, go get Astor. And I said, I don't want Astor. I don't want Astor. I thought you were sending me to somebody to ask a question of.
I don't remember.
Astor coffee. You remember Astor coffee?
Yes, I think so.
Yeah.
Yeah, yes, I think so. Years ago. And they used
It's Winn-Dixie brand, I think.
used to cook it until it was black. And that was, if you drank that, you were a strong person. Yes.
Did you have any animals growing up?
Any animals growing up?
Yes, I had a bird, and the bird's name was Jimmy. I loved that bird, and I must have been maybe 14 or 15, and the bird got pneumonia and died, and I remember crying. I just thought that was the greatest thing. I never had any other animals or anything, and my dad hunted. And he had what they called a hunting dog, and it was always tied up to its house where it was, and it was a smelly thing. Oh, I never was allowed to pet them. I wasn't allowed to have them as a pet, but I would sneak around and look at them. Hunting dogs. Yeah. Yeah, and used to get deer. And they would hang the deer in the garage downstairs where they fixed cars. And I can remember coming home from school and going into the garage before I went upstairs, and there was that thing hanging. It's terrible. It was all laying open.
Ask her about radio shows before television.
We weren't allowed, it was during the Depression that we had a problem there. And you weren't allowed to can anything to keep, preserve it so you could have it when it was winter. And they used to hide the jars of illegal meat in back of other jars of stuff. And it's what they called the dark room, which was where the canned goods was, the whole can. And I can remember they came and checked. They checked people's houses and
Why?
would find them money if
Why couldn't you can stuff?
because it was just illegal.
Poaching, probably. Out of season.
To have it with
Oh, you're kidding! They had seasons during the Depression.
But you let me tell you, when they opened a can of that stuff, we thought it was Christmas. It was just so good.
If there wasn't any money to buy
During the
food.
Depression, we didn't have meat and stuff
I
like
can't
that.
believe
They-
that
They hunted
that
for
wouldn't
fish.
supersede a season. Someone's
And I don't
starving
know
to
if I
death.
told you, but there was one type of animal, I can't remember what possum, I believe it was, and my grandpa used to say it wasn't fit to eat, and I guess it wasn't. But what they would do, they would get it, would trap it, and get it, and then put it in the corn crib and let it eat the corn crumbs for 6 weeks. And then after 6 weeks, you could kill it and eat it. It was all right to eat that. But you didn't eat that possum that was shot right there.
There's people that do that with pigs. Like wild hogs now.
Turtles.
That's
Yeah.
a good idea.
And it
I
gets
don't
all the
remember-
gaminess and stuff
I
out
don't
of it.
remember that we ate.
I can't believe that the
ate
government
that,
would
but
say you couldn't eat something you shot when you
We
didn't have nothing to eat.
had, I had some cousins that they were very poor. And at Christmas time, my mother would take a clothes basket, which was a fruit basket, round. And she would, seems to me like she put wax paper on top of newspaper. And then we made popcorn and stuff like that, and then made a ball, popcorn balls. And then she had colored foil or colored paper that you rolled them in, and we made that for cousins and took them in a bushel basket. A bushel basket full of popcorn balls, doesn't weigh anything at all. It just delight, you know. But they were poor, a little bit poorer than what we were.
Tell us some things about your parents.
My parents.
Yeah.
Well, my mother was, she was an invalid. I don't ever remember her off of crutches. She always wore crutches. And she had those crutches padded with old quilt. She'd pad the thing that fit under the arm so it was softer that she could walk with it. And she would walk, and Daddy would put her shoes on in the morning. He would go down, open the garage, and then Uncle Andy would come, and then Dad would come up and dress my mother. And I can remember some bedroom shoes she wore that had some kind of elastic. I think that was what they wore around the arm. Elastic thing to hold the sleeves up way back, and just a round thing, or like a garter. And he put that around her shoes to keep her on her feet. I remember that. And
What happened? Was it an accident? Why couldn't she get around?
what happened?
Why was she on crutches all
She
of
had
your life?
arthritis.
Oh, okay.
She had arthritis real bad. And
Wow.
there's a picture in with my picture someplace of me when I was a little girl, maybe 2 years old or so. And that was when she stopped walking, you know, without crutches. She had arthritis. Doctor for years. And they never had. I was adopted when I was 6 weeks old. I'm not blood to them, but I know who they were. I mean, the Burkhouses. And I was laying in bed the other day, and I couldn't get to thinking, and I got to thinking about last names of people in Pennsylvania. There was Ashball, and just weird names that you don't hear anymore that were back there in Pennsylvania that we don't have.
You told me one time the story of when you found out that you were adopted.
Adopted.
Yeah, you remember
I
that?
was 9 years old, and some little girl got mad at me in church and told me, "Oh, you're just adopted." So I went home, and my mother and Dad my mother couldn't go up the steps to go to the church anymore, so she didn't go, and Dad didn't go then. And I remember going home and asking them what was adopted, and then they explained to me, but I was 9 years old. Back then, you didn't talk about that kind of stuff. It was just a no-no. I mean, you know.
So what did your daddy do when you...
Aren't y'all tired?
Not yet. What was that, Kara?
So what did her dad do as a job?
Tell them about Grandpa, your dad. About you said that he worked at the garage, but that's not the only job he had. When he worked in the mines and
Yes, they were coal miners. My Aunt Lucy, well, a lot of people on their properties had coal mines. That area was full of coal, just full of it. And they'd make this big thing to go through, like you could walk through it, and they had these paddy cars on a rail, and they pushed it. And they pushed this along and get the coal out of the sides of and the people that had them on their property never had to buy coal or anything. They just went out and they had the children gather the lumps of coal wherever they could find it, and it would burn. It was just like what they would buy. And a lot of places, that's all they heated their homes with was.
Who was your best friend?
what was that?
Who was your best friend?
Do you remember some of your special friends?
Special friends?
Some of your best friends, you remember?
Not too much. I remember Hummel. Alma Hummel, Hummle, I think was the way it was spelled. They had a grocery store, and I used to go play with her, and we'd go up to her room, and we'd play the piano on the windowsill. We'd play that with the piano, and just things like that. And I remember being boy crazy, just like every other girl is. And it never worked out very good.
How old were you when you first got married?
When I first got married, 20. I was 20 when Jimmy and I were married, and I was a mother at 21, and a widow at 23 and a half. Julie was 2.5 when, and I had a lot of so-called boyfriends and movie stars. Now you'd say movie stars were the greatest thing back when I was a young girl.
And how old were you when you married my dad?
Let's see, 24. And I'll tell you a little story about Chuck. I had 3 girls, and I told my husband, I said, we need to have a boy. And the Lord was going to send us a child, and it didn't work out. I lost that little baby. And I promised God, if He helped me to have another child, I would give that child to Him. And that was a promise I kept, and that was Chuck. And I got that was Thanksgiving Day that one year, and the very next November he was born. And there he was. He belonged to the Lord, because I promised the Lord that he could have that child. And the child is. Now, you all can say that was not a coincidence or something, but it was. To me, I've kept that inside of me all these years. And we didn't have much money when he went to school, and I remember he needed, was it $2,100 at one time? It was quite a bit of money, and I borrowed it. And I was working at the hospital, and I paid that money back for him. And the rest of the time, he worked his way, and Vicky did too. They were a working 2 people with 3 little kids.
So you lost a child on Thanksgiving Day.
Thanksgiving Day. Mm-hmm. Thanksgiving Day, and the very next year, I had you in November.
What was that? Was the baby a girl or a boy?
No, it was a miscarriage.
I never will forget that. I never did ask what it was. I mean, it was, I just figured that there was something great here. And they turned out pretty great.
Is it all right?
Yeah. Oh dear. Aren't y'all bored now?
No. Ask her about the radio
I'm
before there was
getting
TV.
tired.
Okay.
No.
Now we all grew up with TV. Now they didn't have TV when you were little. Did you ever listen to radio programs? Did you
Yes,
listen?
yes.
Well, what do you remember? What some of the radio programs were?
No, like
No. Did you ever listen?
Amos and Andy.
Okay.
That was something that we looked at, and my dad, I could just hear him laugh with Amos and Andy.
Did you ever hear any of Roosevelt's fireside chats on the radio?
No.
No. That's
I
because
do
you're
remember that
Republicans.
he was the president for 12 years.
He lives that Democrat. Oh.
And
Well,
One more thing. Is it true that Granny was born in the place where the groundhog is for Groundhog Day?
yeah, she was born, where were you born?
Punxsutawney, Pennsylvania, where the groundhog sees his shadow.
That's right.
That's awesome.
They were childhood friends.
And they
Wait a
still
second, you said you ate
celebrate
groundhog.
these ritzy people, these men that are so great looking with all their high hat and their tails and they're dressed, they get on TV and they're just so great, and it's Groundhog Day. The 2nd or 3rd of February.
February 2nd.
Yep.
Granny, did you ever visit somewhere, like a state or something that you really enjoyed, a travel time or something?
Carol wanted to know, did you ever travel and go somewhere that you?
I went to Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania one time, and I thought I was Mrs. Astor. My dad took my mother and me, and my mother got on an escalator at this big department store, and she went to the top and fell.
Oh,
And the management had to come and get her up, and that was bad. But that was the greatest thing when I got to go to Pittsburgh, and I believe I got a pair of shoes there. And I can remember my mama on those crutches, hobbling along, and we had an aunt that went along to help, and we just didn't have the money to do things, that y'all have a chance to get now. And food was, my mama would buy from a farmer the butter, the homemade butter, and that stuff was so strong you couldn't stand it. Oh. She would let it on the kitchen table and it would sort of melt down and it smelled. Oh,
That's why Dave wouldn't
it was terrible.
You know what I told everybody at Wednesday night Bible study this week? I was telling about how your birthday's coming up. And I told them how growing up, I would go to your house and sometimes you would make fish and cook the whole fish. The fins and everything. And they thought that was the craziest thing.
I think they scraped the skin.
I took the scales off.
Yeah, I told him that. I said, it was gutted. We scaled it,
Right.
but she always made it with the fins. And I said that Grady would always say the fins were like potato chips. And they thought she was
My
crazy.
dad always cut the head off. But we went up to the country after Bob and I after you guys were born and all. And they served us up there a fish on a dish with a head on it. There was a head still on that fish, and I never will.
I've had that in fancy restaurants.
Something
I
crazy
knock it
to
over
say.
like this.
But you would eat the tails. You'd let them get
Oh,
crispy.
yes, fish tails were good. My mama used to do them in a hot grease, and they would be crispy, and they were good.
Did you ever eat chicken feet?
Yes. Mama used to, I think it was lye that she used in the water some way, but they were clean. They scrubbed them and parboiled them and they were clean, and then they fried them, and boy, they were good.